Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Comprehension instruction is aiming to help our child. When I mean our child, a child with specific learning difficulty, to understand the passage better and also to remember whatever he has read and also to retrieve or to communicate what is being read by him or also being heard by him. It can be either way, whether he has heard the passage or he has read the passage, he has to understand it and he has to understand it the way it has to be understood that in the passage and also to remember and communicate. The comprehension instruction has two important components, the listening comprehension and the reading comprehension. We will first now look into listening comprehension. As the name suggests, the passage is going to be heard by the child. The teacher is expected to read the passage and the passage will be heard by the child and the teacher will then pose questions to the child and the child will give out the answers. So, this is listening comprehension and this is an auditory activity. I am going to read a passage to you and later on I will be asking some questions based on the passage. Shall we begin? The magic man came to our school. He did a magic show. We saw some tricks. The magic man had a black hat and a magic wand. He played some fun music. The little white rabbit was there. He was cute. The magic man then talked to us about some tricks. We had a good time. You all got the passage? Now, I am going to ask some questions. Who came to our school? The child is expected to just give out an answer. If the child is much younger, you can also provide him with some options like the magic man, the teacher, lawyer or any other word that comes to your mind. The child has to then choose an option that is from the one that has been provided to him. About whom are we speaking in this passage? The rabbit, the magic man, the teachers. About whom are we speaking? Yes, the child will then answer it is about the magic man that is being spoken in this passage. We will move on to the next question. Which happened first? The little white rabbit came out. The magic man played some music. The magic man came to our school. What should you think the child should answer? The child should answer the magic man came to our school, in which case you would know whether the child has understood the passage, whether he has known the sequence clearly and whether he has heard it clearly, that is more important, right. What does the word trick mean here? Magic? Cheating? What does it mean? Yes, the child should have understood that it is the trick. The word trick here denotes magic, it is not cheat. For generally in local language we will say, don't trick me, isn't it? So, the child should understand the word in context. That is all what is about comprehension, isn't it? So, if the child has understood the word, then he will immediately choose the option magic. There is a word in the passage that denotes opposite of big. Can you remember that word? The child will immediately have to remember the word little, right? Then the child will immediately connect it to the opposite that he has already learnt and then give out the word little. So, in this way the child's vocab and the child's meaning of the understanding of the entire passage is being paid attention to. We will now put out a passage for you, so that you can see, though it is an auditory activity, we are just going to put out a passage for you, so that you can have a look at it and later on the questions and how they are all based on. I hope you have all read the passage. Now, let us see the questions and the basis of how this questioning is being done. If you can see, we are now going to check for attention, whether the child's attention has been sustained throughout. Though the passage was put up, this passage will be read out to the child by you. So, the child should be paying attention to get the see whether he has you will be checking for attention. Next thing is whether he has understood the passage in context. Like what we did in our earlier role play, he should have understood in context, right, the difference. So, we are going to check for the understanding of the passage. So, we are going to make a question based on it. Then we are going to find out the sequencing part of it. So, he has to know the entire. The fourth one, we are also going out to bring his reasoning into it. So, whether we are going to increase or we are going to improve thinking. So, for give him a reasoning question, and not but last, you can also test him for his vocabulary. So, whether he has had this vocabulary with respect to that passage. So, whether he is able to remember it and retrieve it and say it out. Now, shall we go on to the questions? Based on the passage we saw, the questions are now being put up. Now, when did the cat run into the garden? What should you think the child should have answered? You can give an option, of course. The options you can give are maybe morning, evening, night or day. So, the child should pick up the particular word that is being exactly given in the passage. How many pets did the child have? Do you think the child would have understood? Only if he has understood the passage will he be able to give you an answer to this question. He should have understood that both the cat and the fish are his pet, right? The next question, on which did the cat jump first? If you remember your passage, the child should say floor first, isn't it? First he jumped on the floor, then he went on the chair, and then he moved on to the table. Then why do you think the boy had to keep an eye on the cat? What do you mean by an eye on the cat? The child should not take the literal meaning here. The child should understand the meaning to keep an eye on the cat, which means the boy should always look at the cat. Why? Because it might eat the fish. So, this reasoning, this logical thinking should have happened, should be built in the child. That is why this question is being posed to him. Then give a word for mother and father. What do we call them together? Yes, again the child's vocab should be in place to tell they are called parents. It is not been provided in the passage, but the child should be knowing about this and saying it aloud. So friends, so far we have showed a sample to you and a role play to you as to what is it that we as teachers will be doing in listening comprehension and how this is going to enhance the child's comprehension capabilities. As I said, there are two important components, one was the listening comprehension, the other was the reading comprehension. Shall we now move on to the next important component, that is the reading comprehension? We will now move on to a comprehension passage. The one that has been shown to you here is A Little Christmas Story. One Christmas, we saw Santa Claus at our school. He gave each of the children a toy and a watch. I told him my name, but I did not want to tell him goodbye. I ate cake, then I put on my coat and went out the door. There was snow on the ground that day. We got some wood and we made a fire. We had fun. See, this is how the child is expected to read so that he understands. We want our children to read fluently, else the comprehension suffers. The child will not be able to understand as and when he reads. When I say fluently, he must be able to recognize the word instantly and or decode the word and read it with ease. He should not make an effort to do it, and he should do it automatically. Now, we want our child to read fluently so that he understands the passage as and when he reads. Not only that, if he is going to struggle to read a particular word, we know that mental fatigue sets in, and so hence we want him to instantly recognize and read a word or decode a word, and this has to be done effortlessly, so that his understanding of the passage is there. Now that we have seen that our child is able to read fluently, now we will get on to the other activities to see whether he has understood the passage. First activity that we can do with our children is to fill in the blanks. In this case, the child will have to read the question and then go back and scan the passage and look out or pick up the particular answer and then get back and fill it. If the child is not able to, this can be done as a written activity at a later stage, but first we do it orally. Let us now move on to the activities. The first activity that has been given to you here is fill in the blanks. For example, one Christmas, there are two blanks came to our school. What am I going to fill in the blank? I will immediately go up to the passage and see it has to be Santa Claus. What did I do here? I went back to the passage, I scanned for those words, I located them, and then I am able to place it in that particular place and give out the answer. So, this way the scanning and skimming of the passage is being taught to the child, or the child learns this skill. The next activity being plurals. So, when I say child, what would be the plural of the word child? Again, the child has to retrieve it from his long term memory. The word children he must have already learnt, he should remember it, go back to it and then locate it and then put it. The next activity is matching the words in column A to the words in column B. Similarly, we can go over the other activities, like we have a match, then we have an unscramble to know the spellings, then we have so that give one word for they read it and they get the word and they place it, and also the past tense. I am sure you will all be doing almost all these activities with your children. Let us now move on to the steps that have to be followed while doing reading comprehension with a learning difficulty child. First of all, the passage that is to be selected is to be of the child's interest. If the child is a younger child, age 5 or 7 or 8, then the topic that has been selected should be accordingly, that is of interest to him. In case the child is about 7 or 8 years old and we choose a topic in cooking, that is not going to be of interest to him. So, something which the child likes to read. Okay? So, that kind of a topic should be chosen. Then, having chosen such a topic, let us now discuss the main idea of the passage. What is it the passage is talking about? And after which we will put down the words, the most difficult words for the child on the board, so that he knows or recognizes the word in isolation and he is able to read the word in isolation. When he gets a hang of how to read the word, he will be able to fit into the passage to read it fluently along within the passage and also derive the meaning for it. Then you ask the child to read the passage. In case the child is having a problem, we then go on to phrase it for him and help him in phrasal reading, so that enhances his comprehension. Then you ask the child to make the questions. For each and every line, the child can be asked to make a question, so that he understands the passage thoroughly. When we make a question, we understand the relationship. Only when we understand the line or the sentence that has been given to us will we be able to make a question. After you have asked the child to read the passage, now make the child read the questions that are given beneath the passage. Having read the question, the child will now go and look at the passage and locate the answers for those questions, as we did in the passage that we just showed you. If the child is unable to locate the question, then you help the child, give him clues, prompt him, so that he is able to locate the question. Then the child must have understood the passage, only then he will be able to locate the answers for the questions. Later on, you can ask him to make a poster of as to what I know. From whatever he has read, he should be able to make a poster as to what he has understood of from the passage that he has read so far. As I was telling you, after reading the questions, the child would be now locating the questions, answers for the questions. He should now answer the questions. Now, for when he is going to answer the question, you please encourage him to answer in past tense. For example, who was there? So, he has to tell there was. He should not bring present tense into while answering the questions. So, we should constantly encourage the child to answer in past tense and also in complete sentences. The child will immediately give you a monosyllable answer. So, he has to answer in complete sentences. In order to stimulate his thinking, we put him more questions, so that he is made to think little out of box and also answer. What if you were there in the place, what could have happened, so and so did not come, do you think what the king did right, if you were the king, had you have done this, or would you have given this punishment? That way we are going to stimulate the child to think and answer. He is going to put himself, visualize the situation or put himself in the situation and think a lot before answering. Now, later on, whenever you question him, ask questions that are relating to reasoning, where he can deduce or we can infer, and also bring in lot of emotions, so that his feeling is also taken into consideration here about what he feels the passage, whether it was right or wrong. He can start analyzing the passage critically. As you can see, there are various activities that have come up which you can work with the child, like you can ask them to draw a poster as to what they have learnt about. You can ask them to highlight the main ideas, and all this they can also depict it pictorially. They can draw a scene or whatever they have understood from the passage, they can draw it and show it to you. And you can ask the child to make questions for each and every line in the passage to make him understand better. When the child is able to make questions, you know that the child has very clearly understood the passage. And later on, you can also encourage speed reading, because that is fluency. That speed reading or fluency comes only when the child has understood the passage in context. Now, let us now move on to the strategies. First of all, use the existing knowledge. The child must have had a prior knowledge, right. So, whatever he has had, use that to have a doubt whether the child has understood. You please ask questions during while reading the passage or even before the passage to know their prior knowledge about that passage, or even after the passage to know whether they were really reading, their attention was sustained. After reading the material, you can ask them to draw inferences. What did they understand? The conclusion. You can ask them, even if at all, you need not even go to the conclusion. You can ask them to think about what could the conclusion be. That will also give you an idea as to whether in what angle the child has been looking into the passage and what has been his perception, and whether at all he has read it thoroughly. If the meaning of the passage is not being understood by the child, then please give him contextual clues so that he understands the meaning in which the passage expects him to understand. If the child is unable to understand certain words in the passage, then you can give him contextual clues to understand those particular words. And finally, you also synthesize, make a complete summary of whatever has been read. He has to concise and give it in couple of lines, so that from that you will be able to understand whether the child has read the passage and understood the passage as and when he has read it. Let us now move into the factors that affect comprehension. Sometimes the child may face difficulty in interpreting this sentence. For example, when I say the boy saw the girl who ran away quickly, he might not be able to understand as to who ran away quickly. So, we have to help him to understand. Then in case it is a passive sentence, like what has been given here, like the girl was seen by the king, the child might not be able to understand. So, we have to break down the sentence in order to make him understand it. Then in case the child is having issues or problems in syntax and semantics, yes, the comprehension ability of the child of that particular passage suffers, and he should be able to relate it to the prior knowledge. When he is not able to, yes, the child is again having difficulty in comprehending, and the child should also be able to grasp the concept that is being provided to him. If that is not in place, his comprehension is going to suffer. In a class, when you are doing a reading comprehension with the child, if you see the child is not able to understand, you could see that any of these things might be occurring to him. Like when the child is not able to really put his mind into it, you know that the child is not exactly reading, listening or paying attention to what is being read. His attention is not there, in which case all that you can do is just go near the child or slightly tap him to see, hey, I am here, and then he just comes back and says to the context where he is being reading. So, he gets back into the groove of reading. Sometimes what happens when an entire set of word is given to a child with learning difficulty, the child immediately gets cluttered, he gets scared. He does not want to read because there are too many words all over. So, the camera or the brain just gets shuts off and it say, hey, I am not going to do it. So, in which case you can just break it down into small chunks or give him much more space, so that it is all not together for him to enable. And in case the child is not able to remember what he has read, please prompt him, motivate him, give him lot of clues to to whatever he has read, try to remember. And you can also give him ways and means of remembering in sequence what has been happened. After each and every 2 lines, maybe you can ask them to summarize the 2 lines, then go on to the next, then the 4. That way you can slowly enable him to read the entire passage. Otherwise, a dyslexic child will not be able to read, and he will lose track of whatever being he is read, and he will lose his interest in reading. So, we need to help our child to enable him to read and understand, because that is one of the important part or essential element in reading. In this segment, we have seen in detail about reading comprehension and listening comprehension and why it is important to impart this comprehension instruction. So far, we have seen all the 5 pillars of reading, namely phonemic awareness, phonic instruction, fluency instruction, vocabulary instruction, and finally comprehension instruction. In the coming next segment, we will look into the various errors being made by a dyslexic child and the ways of remediating them.